Good morning, everyone. This is Chris Korupati from Cambrian Lab. With me is my colleague, Hiren Shah. Today's session, we are going to be covering a pretty exciting topic around supplier development and engagement. We believe it's a very, very practical and effective path to a better supply chain. Before we go into it, a little bit of logistics about Zoom webinars. You do have a number of tabs or buttons at the bottom. One for asking questions and answers, another one for sending any chat messages to the panelists if you would like to. How we are going to organize this webinar is as follows. The first few minutes, and we will promise you it won't be more than 10-12 minutes, we will be looking at some of the aspects as well as challenges of supplier development and engagement. We'll spend the bulk of the time, about 25 to 30 minutes, around how we believe it should be done. We are using one of our workflow engines, which is designed for supply chain workflows, and how it can actually help you engage with suppliers better and help them develop as part of your supply chain programs. We'll leave around 15 minutes towards the end for questions and answers. Since you cannot ask any question and answer, we recommend that you type the questions directly into the Q&A or chat. My colleagues will be monitoring those, and we will answer all the questions towards the end. If there are any unanswered questions, we will send them via email, or you will have the contact information from this deck that we will forward after the session. With that, we're going to get started. About Cambrian Lab, one thing that sets us apart in the landscape is we were practitioners, supply chain and new product development practitioners. Several of us came from automotive, high-tech, medical device, and consumer products industries. We were supply chain people, engineering people, and over the last few years, some of us had worked at several supply chain and ERP software companies, and we felt that there is substantial room for improvement in how supply chain and product development should be supported within the supply chain. So we are going to focus today a little bit on one of our products, flagship products, ZFlow, digital workflow for the product supply chain. But by and large, I think it will be a very subject matter oriented discussion on what's the effective way to work with suppliers and develop them. We are based out of the three West Coast, East Coast, and Midwest in the US. Most of our customers come from, I'd say, automotive. These are the types of industries where, design and working with supply chain are central to what they do. So if you look at supplier engagement and development lifecycle, there are many, many stages. Obviously, depending upon the type of product supplier you work with, not all of it is necessary. However, these are the various stages your company is going through to find the need for new suppliers, as well as selecting, working with them, developing them, and for some reason or another, perhaps even ending the relationship, right? However, one of the things that we know is that all purchasing is not equal, right? You have routine purchases for which the supply chain strategy can be fairly straightforward. You're just buying things from them and they'll deliver it, hopefully on time at low cost, with high quality. Not much needs to be done if it is routine suppliers. However, things change dramatically when you go into non-strategic and strategic suppliers. If you are concerned about viability of the product, effectiveness of what you do in the market, and your supply chain is a significant part of value add, you just have as much work to do or as much responsibility to help your suppliers get better. And that applies for non-strategic and strategic supplier partners. I mean, there are several ways to really categorize, the supply chain relationships. It could be depending upon the value, or it can be depending upon the commodity. So this is a little bit of a fictitious example, since it's a company that you all know, we had just made up what could they be doing in terms of categorizing and how they work with different supply chain partners, right? You have strategic, non-strategic, and routine. So I suppose the relationship is really categorized, and what they do with these suppliers will be based upon one of these types of classifications. The other thing is, once you do settle on a type of categorization for supplier relationships, you can really structure the engagement life cycle based on the needs. For example, if it is routine, things that you can buy off the shelf, you can go to Amazon or Costco or your local Grainger place. You don't have to do much other than, perhaps they will support using some type of procure-to-pay solution or e-commerce enablement. If you look at non-strategic, obviously, things get a little bit more complicated. You may have to do a little bit of evaluation, structure the contract properly, and engage with some level of day-to-day collaboration with suppliers. Maybe there is even need for some supplier development activities. And if you look at strategic suppliers, they are just equal to you in terms of what you do, right? They are central to your program success, mission success, as they call it, and the way you would select and the type of relationship you structure, and that's why we call it memorandum of understanding. You may be very involved in getting them up to speed, and on a day-to-day basis, you may still be involved. It's not uncommon. Several of us come from auto industry. It's not uncommon to have supplier quality engineers just, staying at supplier locations. So that level of engagement is also needed for strategic suppliers. So if you look at, from a hierarchy perspective, this is actually practiced a lot by a couple of Japanese automakers. For them, supplier partnering is very, very strategic. There are a number of things that they do from bottom all the way to top, and the level of collaboration starts from the top, from management understanding to really they look at them as partners, not as adversaries, which used to happen, in a little bit in supply chain relationships. And then, there are many, many angles of evaluating and selecting suppliers. Obviously, cost is not the most important thing for many of the supply chain relationships, especially if they're strategic. There are many other aspects that you have to consider when you are evaluating and selecting suppliers. And then on a day-to-day basis, there are several things, especially if they are key to your program success. You may have to really make them part of your day-to-day activities in a cross-functional manner. And that's something that we're going to look at today. The other thing that is very related to supplier development is performance assessment and related development programs. This needs to happen, if not on a daily basis, on a repeated, periodic fashion, so that both the supplier and you as an organization have a clear picture of how the supplier is performing. And it needs to be pretty transparent. And based upon the performance, you may jointly agree upon certain types of improvement programs. There's typically, where we come from, they were all organized as A3 report projects or Kaizen events. You can pick your methodology on how to do improvement projects, but these two are our favorite. Now, that's all well and good. However, if you, on a practical basis, if you want to work with your supply chains, make them part of your ecosystem as equal partners or something of that nature, it is not easy to do. We've seen it as practitioners, and we continue to hear from our customers that is this working with suppliers is just still very suboptimal. And we did a little bit of research. We support a lot of workflows, both in the product development space. And one of the things that it was very obvious to us is supply chain, supplier development, and engagement is seen primarily as some type of an IT solution. Most of the time in the strategic engagement of suppliers, nothing exists. There is really no structured way people have approached this. And if there is anything, it's to do something, I'd say very tactical, like PO collaboration or throwing forecasts over. Not much in terms of how do you get them to work with you on a seamless manner, right? So we have ourselves, after having looked at it, we're not satisfied with the current situation. So we came up with, we've had this for a long time, and our workflow engine, we started to support supply chain workflows. We've traditionally been engaged very deeply in new product introduction. You do work with suppliers in new product introduction. However, what we've thought is that you really can extend the same philosophy to supporting a complete supply chain relationship. So we believe we have everything that is needed to make it a part of your supplier development or engagement strategy. We'll see how it brings together all those elements. Again, this is an area, we do support a lot of different cross-functional workflows. Most of our work has been so far in the product development area, but we've started to add a lot of capabilities to really get strategic supplier development and engagement workflows in. And so far, we've been getting very good reaction. Now, there are other areas which are related that also help make the supplier engagement process better. But today, we'll be looking at the supplier engagement and development workflows. Obviously, we believe very strongly that, especially if you look at the top, those two new product introduction, supply chain, supplier performance, especially if you're engaged in contract design manufacturing or suppliers are providing critical subsystems, being able to work with them effectively has obvious benefits. So what we have as part of ZFlow are a number of interconnected workflows that actually support the whole supplier relationship and development. Okay, starting with where does the need for new suppliers come from, right? How do you evaluate suppliers and perhaps even do a little bit of risk assessment? How do you actually make suppliers part of your day-to-day activities? What is the best way to accomplish that? We have a thesis, which we think is better than what today is available as a solution for a lot of our customers. Then we really think there's a big gap in how people can work with supplier development. Today, it's all done via emails, and I think there's just a ad hoc approach to that. And we look at some of the operational aspects, not as much around PO collaboration, all of that, because that is the simpler part of working with suppliers. But how do you assess performance suppliers as they are working with you, and what do you continue to do when performance is not meeting standards, or you want to do support continuous improvement at your suppliers. So that's these are the types of approaches that we take. We believe that the beginning to end approach is what would be most effective for when you're engaging with suppliers and developing suppliers. So what I'll do is take you through a demo of some of the different workflows and even perhaps some of the tools that we've developed to support supplier engagement and development. Okay, with that, let me get started with the demo.
That may be beyond my abilities at the moment.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so here we have ZFlow, the Supplier Engagement and Development Edition. Because I do it, as I indicated, we do support a lot of different areas, within the organization, like new product introduction and master data, etc. So what you're looking at is on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, for me, if I'm looking at it, it says Launchpad for Administrator. This, you are using ZFlow as an organization. Okay, these are all the different workflows and tools that are available to support your supplier engagement and development activities. And when we say supplier engagement and development, we really see this as a cross-functional approach, right? There is no such thing as purchasing or procurement will work with suppliers and that's the end of story. We've seen in our experience that every function, from component engineering, manufacturing, quality management, they actually work with suppliers, right? So you need to be able to extend any of these workflows to your suppliers, or even, and on the left, you're looking at, if I am a supplier, I need to be able to work with you on a day-to-day basis, which means all of your workflows where I can participate should be available to me, right? So here on this side, which says Launchpad for Supplier Administrator, I'm logged in as the actual supplier. And we believe in transparent relationships. So obviously, even supplier can see his own supplier performance. He can see, risk assessment that was done, or provide inputs to those. And these are all the different workflows that they are part of. So they're all showing up, within their side of the fence, if you want to call it. It's not a fence, they're part of it. But, you need to give a portal to your suppliers on how they participate in your day-to-day activities. And that's what this side of the thing, it's the same solution. It's just one for your internal company, one for your supplier. So a lot of the times, when you start from the beginning, you get a lot of supplier requests, what I would call need for new suppliers, if I should say. When your component engineering team or design engineering team are specifying new manufacturer suppliers. So here is an example of a workflow that where the component engineering team has identified Intel as the supplier for this A10X system on chip, right? So internally there is a process that is an agreement between, let's say, purchasing or strategic sourcing and design component engineering, where they specify. And the workflow here includes, so a few activities. Component engineering obviously is the one that selects it. However, we do have other people that play a role, right? Safety, regulatory, quality engineering, test, etc. So those workflow parts of it are actually, being done here. And within this workflow, if you look at it, the manufacturer and supplier qualification happens as part of this workflow. So this is how your need for new supplier and qualification comes together. Now, out of this, you can actually create a supplier evaluation, right? So before suddenly someone, your engineering team or somewhere, service team, plant engineering, find out, hey, I need a new equipment, new part component supplier, you need to first be able to do some supplier evaluation. And one of the things that we learned when we are doing supplier evaluation is there is really no one size fits all evaluation approach. We've seen, it can depend upon the program, or it can depend upon the type of part. It can depend upon the type of relationship. In all of these cases, you need to be able to flexibly set up, how are we going to evaluate this supplier? Right, here are the various areas of concern that you can integrate into the evaluation process. You can actually even give a scoring, weighting, as well as rating methods that you'd want to integrate here. So here, obviously, it is, high is better. Then this is how people would, as an engineering, as supply chain, as strategic sourcing, you can set up how do we want to evaluate for particular programs, and you need to be able to do it. So here is, for example, we are not done yet. Maybe a few more things around product and process are also needed. If your strategic sourcing is there, they also might want to look at different types of the company capability and stability, etc. So you can design these types of evaluation methods for specific needs, types of customers and programs. Now, once that is done, obviously, people would come and give input, and at the end of the day, someone supply, as a group, you can select the supplier, right? Or approve the supplier or reject, hey, this is not the right supplier, for a variety of reasons. But what the reasons are, why you've decided not to do it, and or do it, right? So these are the types of things that you can do. And once that is done, you are actually going to go ahead and onboard the supplier. So this is a pretty popular approach that we've seen our customers adopt is, once they've selected the supplier, they need to onboard them. And onboarding a supplier means many things, right? For strategic suppliers, they have to do a lot of things, and you may add them to portals, and of course, you can also use this solution to onboard and work with them. But there are very many steps that are involved, so that they can deliver and get paid for it, and deliver. Sometimes they have to create a vendor in SAP, send RFP documents. All of these things are happening, as the continuation of the workflow. So we support all of these workflows, integration to your ERP systems, supply chain planning systems, logistics systems, where the supplier is going to be part, or it has some, identification work that they need to be part of those systems to be able to work with you. And those seamlessly, we support that integration. So your supplier is properly onboarded and can work with you effectively. Okay, so this is just to get the supplier, into your system. Let's say that, right? In all these cases, suppliers can, be part of the workflows. The last one that I was showing, if you're getting a new supplier request, you can actually have suppliers join into these workflows, and then sometimes they have to provide contractual document, bank information, and compliance, and any type of the qualification requirements, etc. So all of that, they can be part of this workflow and provide it, right? And once the supplier is created, you will send them all the information so that they are aware what supplier numbers to use, and how to do the business going forward. Now, so far we've seen, okay, the suppliers have just onboarded. There are a number of other things that you can do, self-service tools that you can give so that they can update their profile, submit changes to their bank information, and so on. Those are the simpler things that you can accomplish. Once you are onboarded, you have to, if you're in a product development oriented collaboration, you may want to bring them on board as part of your program, right? So here is a program, ZFlow Next, that is currently running. You can call it, and we want suppliers to participate in product development, right? So if they are in product development here, what we have done is set up a supplier product development process here. And that includes not only suppliers, but it also actually has some project tasks that they should be doing. Especially if it is a very tightly bound collaborative projects, you might want to drive the project for them, right? So when they're doing it, here is a good example where Intel is actually the supplier that is doing the project, the supplier product development. Because Intel is added, Intel can immediately see into their part, hey, I have actually, now this whole project is kind of given out to me, so I'll have to do these tasks here. Okay, so they'll start to look at it, and these tasks will be given out to Intel teams here. So activities, action, my tasks, etc. So if you look at this list here, the simulation and design as part of the supplier product development supplier product development project will start showing up in Intel's kind of like inbox here. Okay. One of our more commonly used one, however, is actually Supplier Ppap. You can also put up Supplier Ppap, production part approval process, for people that are not aware of it, as a means to drive the program with suppliers. So if you look at Supplier Ppap, if supplier is going to be practicing advanced product quality planning, that is a lot more elaborate, right? So if you look at Supplier Ppap, it follows the standard that we've promote this with our customers to use a PQP methodology, right? You can obviously set this up as a way to drive supplier work with you, collaborative work. So here you can see that there are 5 phases in Ppap. Phase 1, actually, although it looks like a workflow here, right? It also includes project underneath it. It's been very, very effective on how this comes together, because there's a project phase and then there's actually a review. So you have a stage gate based Ppap process here, production part approval process. Each phase you can design which ones that you want to accomplish. I mean, this is fairly standard if you're in the automotive industry. I think this is a well-known concept that suppliers know what to do. But you can use the production part approval process method of engaging with suppliers and deploy this as a way, hey, this, if you're going to be working with me, you need to do all of this. And you have then visibility into all of what supplier is doing for you, right? And this is a very, we believe this is probably one of the robust frameworks that is available to make sure that your supplier is capable of producing in volume, in the specified volume that you asking him or her to do, in a reliable and cost-effective fashion, right? In a reliable fashion is more important. So when they follow Ppap, APQP Ppap process, you have a high level of confidence that they can actually do it. because then they have to do it and they have to provide you with all of this data. And they can do it as part of this, process. So we keep track of, there are a number of FMEA tools. We don't have time to go all of that. They can actually, if you look at this workflow, a number of these can be done within ZFlow, from process FMEAs to control plans to validation workflows, etc. Okay, so they will be doing all of that, using ZFlow so that you have complete visibility and confidence. So once that is done, obviously, you need to continue working for a number of other things. We're not going to spend too much time on all of this. You can share purchase orders if this is one way you'd want to allow inputs from your suppliers if they want to provide visibility. There is a purchase order collaboration process where a lot of the, as and when POs are being released, again, we are, the ZFlow as a workflow engine is connected to your ERP or manufacturing supply chain systems. So here in this case, the number of SAP and Salesforce, etc., it is connected to, it can actually extract when the POs are released and share them directly with this correct supplier, because we do keep track of all the vendors, and since we are creating vendors in most cases, we know who is who, and part of the supplier engagement workflows is people, when the suppliers are created, you can add users, supplier users. So Chris at Cambrian Lab is actually in Intel Supplier Admin, and that is what Intel Supplier Admin looks like, their view. So when a PO is released, they can actually come in and look at it. They get notifications. There are a lot of notifications here that you can see, group processes that are coming through. So they can pick up, and if there are places where they can respond to, they can actually do it here, right? So for example, in this one, their delivery quantity, etc., is there. This, we have moved on as part of workflow. Here, the workflow is released, and we are already into ASN processing. So if you are in these steps as a supplier, you can actually change or confirm POs and add text notes, etc., as part of the PO workflow, right? So now we are getting to a point where a lot of the suppliers are, they've onboarded, we've qualified, evaluated them, they're onboarded. Now they are working with you on a day-to-day basis, right? So that's actually, something that on a seamless fashion, they are part of your organization now, right? If it is for a program, etc. And they can continue handling, their parts and, maybe even participate in change requests, change orders, things of that nature. The other thing is, we do actually provide, we do keep track of all the quality events that happen, between your supply chain. So if you look at it, A3, corrective action reports, failure reports, non-conformances, etc. Obviously, you will find most of the time if the suppliers are coming and delivering products, right? You might actually find these non-conformances. IC is not proper condition. So here supplier is involved because, you have to return to supplier. When such a thing happens, I think this image is not there, but you can really structure this workflow. So if you look at this workflow here, since it is targeted, this non-conformance is targeted towards the supplier, the cause is supplier, you can actually go ahead and invite the supplier. So obviously Intel is seeing it now that they've or they finished it, they saw it, right? They can now respond to this. Hey, what should I do, right? Most of the time, you might decide as a company, hey, we need some corrective action around this. Okay. So when a corrective action happens, you can immediately create this corrective action out of this one. Right? IC was not in problem packaging issue at supplier. We need to do a Kaizen event. Right? And obviously that will result in we have an A3 report to handle that. So you can, if you look at it, there was a non-conformance due to a supplier issue. We've created a corrective action out of that. And the corrective action evaluation is that there is some issue that we need to do it, and we will use a Kaizen event or A3 report process. And then if you come from the world of continuous improvement or automotive, A3 report is one of the best ways that you can actually implement very clearly and visually and simply any type of improvement project that you're looking at. Any issue, actually, it's a problem-solving method. So we've created those A3 reports, and now it's in the process of what to do. Right? There'll be a background evaluation. There is always an analysis, and then people will be implementing recommendations. What are the recommendations? It's a closed loop way of working with your suppliers, and they are throughout these steps. They are actually part of the thing, right? Everything that they see, they are part of these workflows as if they are another member of your organization. I think there are every now and then, you might do some audits. We do provide a little bit of a audit functionality that you can customize it, again, for the type of engagement that you have. In our experience, we've worked in some of the most complex industries. There is really no one size fits all. Everything changes per program, and you need to be able to really support that nuance that happens. So that's how you're working together, right? As part of tools, we do provide a number of what you would call analytical tools that support these relationships. Those come in the form of as suppliers are continuously working with you, what is their performance? How do you, in some cases, beyond quantitative, for example, these are the performance metrics that are being collected, from the background, right? Various aspects of the relationship and performance, purchase price variance, perfect order performance, right? Quality performance. You can pick and choose the facets of relationship performance, and you want to be able to share this with your supplier as well, right? So that they are aware, hey, what is coming. And this is more quantitative because you have underlying data to really show this to your suppliers. Right? Share it with your suppliers so that they know what is going on. Now, when this happens, this performance, the other way to also evaluate vendors, and this may happen internally, and our experience is some of our customers do this evaluation as a cross-functional exercise in within the company, is you have a supplier working with you on multiple programs, right? And they are, these are the assessment angles that you want to use: product technology, quality, cost, and process technology, right? And there are some performance criteria under each of those capability and areas. This is how you've given some weights for all of that. This, again, our experiences, these vary from program to program, supplier to supplier. You can get some consistency at the level of a commodity, but especially these strategic suppliers, you have to use a little bit of judgment on what is the important aspect of the relationship. from when you're assessing vendors, right? And then, if they are participating in multiple programs, you also need to give some weighting, right? Not everything. And then you are collecting internal feedback about the suppliers, because suppliers, purchasing, if you're dealing, you cannot be the only person dealing with suppliers. Supplier evaluation assessment can come from multiple people, right? In this case, product will come from engineering, quality, yield, quality manager, initial cost, maybe responsibility of design, technology, manufacturing. They are the ones that actually give, hey, in a qualitative perspective, how is this vendor doing? And you might, at the end of the day, based upon all the weightage scores that people give, and this actually workflow is there that we developed. It's very popular. Allows your cross-functional teams to actually give that input for various elements of that, and they only see, they only give the elements for which they are qualified, equipped to give this value, right? So and then this scorecard is generated out of that. And interestingly enough, this scorecard is actually shared with suppliers. And you can have like a meeting with the supplier with this scorecard. So you can use both quantitative approaches, which is what we saw in the supplier performance, and assessment, which is qualitative, internal view of that. Then we provide a number of other tools around risk assessments, all equipped based on our experience, working with, various suppliers, right? So quality, what are the risks that are there, what are the weightage scores, etc., that come together, and ratings. So you can create some meaningful calculations or ratings that are important for you. Okay. So we also have a few tools that we have started to roll out around supply chain risk assessments. This is a little bit more ambitious in terms of being ability to really map out suppliers, supply chains, deeper supply chains. So if you look at this, the impact, how much revenue is all on the impact, and this is the full supply chain here, the US market regions, to who is making it, who are the sub-suppliers. Sometimes sub-suppliers use some suppliers. So you might you'd be surprised, because there are some nodes which create a lot of risk to your whole operation. Somewhere down there, could be a supplier that is a bottleneck here, right? So I think a lot of them are here in the case of Apple. Imagine something happens in Taiwan or someplace, you have way sub-suppliers that can get affected. And we have some data sources that we can connect to this, so that, you can monitor, how is this 2-level down supplier that is providing wafers, which is actually, in some cases, is what is happening in automotive supply chain right now. Actually, a lot of semiconductor components, this is an issue that is showing up. They're like bottlenecked at the second level. Third level, wafer suppliers, wafer packaging, and wafer manufacturers is where the issues are. So you can still to monitor those types of supply chain risks that come up. And also you can do product level assessments, right? If you have a overall assessment of a given product. And again, if you look at it, you don't have to look at every component and every supplier. Only the key ones are important. It's either a single sourcing related issues, or supplier risks, manufacturing logistics risks, end of life risks. Those are the types of things you can keep track of. Okay. We have about 15 minutes left for Q&A. We'll stop with that. Hopefully it was interesting and valuable in the way we are approaching supplier relationship and development and general understanding of what is going on from a supply chain perspective. So with that, I will start to take questions. Okay. Yes, this deck will be shared. So we have 10 to 12 minutes for Q&A. So feel free to ask any questions. We'll be online for the next 12 minutes. We are actually recording this webinar. So once the recording is available, we'll follow it up with an email that will include the recording as well as this deck. The deck does have our contact information. So if you have any questions, feel free to email us. The other thing that I wanted to also cover is, most of our, we do have a test drive of ZFlow available. You can just sign up for that. You can sign up, and it comes with the test drive. So we will activate all of these tools, and perhaps we can spend some time giving like a little brief of how to get started on that. Then you can take your time, try it out. If you find it useful, we can discuss about how to get started.